the law. Oh, well, don't you know about the claw? Well, everybody knows that the claw is the law. Well, the claw, the claw's the law. Oh, well, everybody's heard about the claw. The claw's the law. Oh, well, the claw, 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 the claw's the law. Oh, well, don't you know about the claw? Well, everybody's talking about the claw. Oh, well, the claw, the law's the law. Drink it claw. Well, don't you know about the claw? Well, everybody knows that the claw is the law. Well, the claw, the claw, the law's the law. Well, don't you know about the claw? Well, everybody knows that the claw is the law.
Hello, everybody. How are we? Probably can hear some conversation going in the background. Hopefully, we're not picking it up too much, but there is another conversation going on in the background. How are we all? Hope we're all doing good. What the hell was going on today, guys? What the hell? Like, what the hell? In order to make sense of what happened today, I literally had to go back and look at what happened on Friday. Nuts, right? Let's say hello to everyone. Hey, Kevy and Michelle, Mayaka, thanks for joining us. And Duck, how's it going? Who else have we got? Nikki, hi Nikki. Justice Jane. How are everybody? All right. Yeah, what's going on? What the hell's going on, man? So, do you remember how last week ended? This is what happens when you have like you have a whole week off, like almost, and then you're like, what the fuck did we step into this morning? So, how did court end last week? So last week, Shannon Burgess got his ass fried by Alessi. But I don't know if you recall this. Alessi did raise that, he's changed his testimony or he's changed his report halfway through. Judge Bev didn't necessarily rule on that, but she did the usual obfuscation and put him on the stand anyway. And then he got his ass fried. But anyway, he was... So Judge Bev was confronted with a discrepancy like, oh dear, well, that was a bit of a screw up. We let Alessi off the hook and made ourselves look like a fool. So instead of dealing with it then before Burgess got on the stand, she continued today as if that none of that happened. Let's just pretend none of that happened, and we'll let Alessi cross Welcher on his changes to his report. So like a little mini cross. I think it is a type of voir dire on admissibility, basically. So that's what we started with today. like a mini voir dire. So, clearly she talked with everybody about this before the cameras rolled, because we have no idea what the fuck she did or said prior to that. We just opened with Alessi straight out the gate going, "Who told you to change your report mid-trial?" So, yeah, that's the holy hell moment, because Welcher said Hanky told him to change it. Who'd you speak to? I spoke with Hanky and Tully. Who told you to change your report? Oh, Hanky did. So, no grave concerns, Judge Beth? Where's your grave concerns this week? Did you leave them at home? Hi, Kelly. Hi, Kimberly. Who else did I miss? Hi, Gonna Force It. JC, how's it going? Tracy, hey. So yeah, where's your grave concerns this week, Judge Bev? Did you pack them up and send them off on a holiday? All right. So, what's the legal meaning of what happened today? Expert reports are discoverable and locked once testimony starts. Any mid-trial revision requires a supplemental disclosure, permission to amend from the court, and notice to the other party, none of which happened in this case, because remember Hanky said, "Oh, I got so surprised. I didn't know until May the 11th. So, did Welcher see trial testimony and then change it? Don't know. Someone did. Someone said something about trial testimony and made him change it. Uh, So yeah, it's not necessarily peer reviewed, it's more like peer pressured, right? Hi Eleanor, thanks for joining us. And Lorna. So yes, interesting, right? But anyway, moving right along. Where are we on my notes? Oh, let's start. Okay, that's what we opened trial with, was like wowza. What the hell is Bev doing without us knowing what she's doing? So, the jury's getting to see some stuff, but probably more than what we're getting to see. So, weird shenanigans. Right, so let's talk about the Bosch reports. I'm going to get into the clown show that ensued, but let's talk about the Bosch reports. Let me get some images on the screen. I don't really want to be playing the testimony because it's a freaking pain in the ass listening to it all again. But let me share this tab. Oh, I forgot about the ads. Right. I think I shared the right screen. Here we go. Let's go. We're looking at all the stuff that Judfa did. Jud Welcher. Jud Chuck did all this stuff. He did all this stuff, and yeah, I don't know. A lot of this is not peer reviewed. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, he's got the qualifications to do a peer review or a study like this. But it's another thing to just go ahead and do it and not have it peer reviewed and then enter it as some sort of scientific evidence or something. They're two completely different things. But anyway, let's talk about what he did. The Bosch CDR tool interfaces with the vehicle's event data recorder, or EDR. It's commonly housed within the Airbag Control Module, or ACM. This system, the EDR and the ACM together, captures critical data during specific events, not necessarily airbag deployment, but significant events. Things that trigger it would be sudden speed spike, sudden brake application, sudden throttle position, certain seatbelt status, and other parameters. So that's what those two systems record. What they're saying, though, what Jud Welcher said is the crash data, there is no crash data. The problem is the crash data report is not stored anywhere. The crash data report is a runtime thing. You plug in your Bosch tool into the OBDC port, and then the Bosch tool sends a message out to multiple different chips in the car system that we're calling modules, sends out a message to multiple modules and says, give me this data. And then it collates it into a crash report. But Karen's crash report is blankety blank blank blank. What is the go there? If you have a blank crash report, yet you are sitting on the stand saying, here's the crash report data, where did you get the crash report data? You can't claim it came from the crash report because there is no crash report, right? Do you all remember the crash report? Let me show it on the screen. I got it here somewhere. Dig, dig, shovel, 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 shovel through all this crap. Here we go. Share screen. All right, this is the crash report. See, it says the Bosch tool. That's what plugs into the OBD2 port. And this is the CDR, crash data retrieval. So it retrieves a whole bunch of information from lots of different modules. And see, no events recorded. Nothing. Nada. Zilch. Zippo. Nothing. So where is Jud's data coming from? He is frequently using the word trigger event, crash data, 5 seconds before the crash, 5 seconds after the crash or triggered event. Where's it coming from? Because Karen's car has not logged an event. Now, I had originally thought maybe, just maybe, they have zeroed out all the data. So there may have been something in there. But then I sort of thought about it. I went through the mechanics of what's going on here. If the vehicle wasn't in a crash, then it wouldn't have crash data. So the fact that her event recorder says no crash data actually tells us there was no fucking crash. That's what it's telling us. There's no collision data because there was no collision. So once I ironed that out in my head, because I've been stuck on this for weeks, like months even, like what happened to the event record. So here's the story, all right? Karen's car is a 2021 model Lexus. This accident, allegedly, happened on the 29th of January. That means her car was less than 12 months old. That means she either bought it brand new off the factory line or it's possibly 6 to 8 months old. Therefore, it's got no fucking events for accidents. Like it's a brand new car, literally. It's got no crash events because it's never been in a crash. So this makes sense to me. There's no crash. Therefore there's no crash data because it's a new car. But what is suspicious is, see how this line says ignition cycle. Hang on, let me get my mouse over here for you. Where are we? This one here, ignition cycle, download times, 11:35. I worked out for the car to be turned on, 1,135 times, and it's only 6 to 8 months old, she would have had to have turned the car on 6 times a day. Even if she was going to work, home from work, to the gym, home from the gym, and to the store or something and back again, every single day, including weekends, she still isn't going to add up to 1135. So that's interesting all on its own. But the fact that the car has no crash reports, that is completely normal because it's a brand new freaking car. It's never been in an accident. Had John hit that bumper in any way, any part of that car, a crash report would have been sent here to the event record. A crash record would have been recorded in the which freaking module are we at now? Hang on. Let me go to my notes. Which freaking module we're supposed to be at? The event data recorder, so the EDR, right? So what he's reading, he said it's a text stream diagnostic extraction. The text stream diagnostic extraction is not going to have trigger events in it. It's just diagnostic. It's like, is the car broke? Does something need to be fixed? Have we got spark plugs misfiring? Have we got, a drain jam somewhere? That's what diagnostics is. It's to do with your mechanic fixing shit. You don't have this 5-second pre and post crash data window coming from the stream diagnostics. It don't come from there. So, Ozzy, hey, we got a guest.
Good morning.
Hayden, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, can't complain. How are you?
We're good.
That's good.
We're actually complaining.
Excellent. I haven't seen any of the stuff that was today, so I'm assuming. I mean, I saw that you were talking about the crash data report and that sort of thing that we talked about on the weekend, but
yeah, that's what today was about.
yeah, fair enough then. Well, then let me interrupt you. I'll just get on the road here. There we go.
Well, we're just talking about what the diagnostics, the text stream diagnostics is for the mechanic to fix your car. It's not where your 5-second pre and post crash data gets stored. That gets stored in the EDR, so the event data recorder. Would you agree with that? You're a bit of a data guy too, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked too deeply into the Bosch diagnostics setup, the way that they've got it, the way that it works.
Right.
I mean, I had a little bit more of a look into the technical technical manual that they have for it, and it does look like you can get software that will allow you to go in and mess with things, but it seems like it would leave a significant data trail for if you did that. I mean, the fact there are no records
I think it's
whatsoever.
a new car. It's a new car. Why? It's a brand new car. She bought it in 2021. She crashed it in January 2022, allegedly. So there should be one crash event, but if there's no crash events, it means the crash didn't happen.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. When you think about it, arguably, there should be two crash events, theoretically, because we know she hit John's car. How the hell is it not some sort of record of that? So,
but it was very slow hitting John's car. She was like snail's pace reversing out, and
yeah, my understanding is that it should still be sensitive enough to have picked that up, though. Like as horrible as the example as this is, part of the reason why the system was set up the way that it is because there were instances of, say, toddlers being reversed over. As horrible as that sounds, now that's not much of an impact when you think about it.
No.
So you'd fully expect that the sensitivity of the record would at least pick up a jostling of a vehicle. I mean, it was enough that there was enough force there that it's caused his car to move. So I would fully expect that there'd be at least some sort of record of some gyro somewhere in the car making a record of that. So.
So yeah, I agree with you. I would have expected 2 crashes to be there, but if you assume the reversing into John's car wasn't enough force to trigger that event, yeah, You just blew my theory completely out the water. I'll accept
Sorry.
it. No, that's all right. No, you're right. I think you're right. I was saying if it's a brand new car, there would be no crash data because no fucking crash happened. But we did actually see one happen. So,
Hmm.
so that blows my theory completely out the water. Interesting. All right. So moving right along, Hayden won Mez 0.
Oh, I don't think there's any point in trying to keep score. You'll bury me.
No, it's all right. I'm just joking. I don't want to go Aussie 1 and Aussie 0 because Aussie is the same person in this
That's
case.
a fair call. Yep.
It's Hayden and Mez today, just so you all know. All right. So, but we have established nonetheless that the tech stream diagnostics for the mechanic is a different thing to the event data recorder, which records the crash logs, right?
Mhm.
So he's saying that we could not access the EDR data. I mean, they have to say that because the CDR, the Bosch tool, draws its report from the EDR. So if
Yeah.
the EDR is saying, if the CDR is saying the crash data report saying there is no crash data, then there's none in the EDR that
Yeah.
for it to report.
Mhm.
So they had to say, oh yeah, well we were reading the tech string diagnostics, not the OBD2 port data, because that avoids saying, oh yeah, the EDR's there. We just decided not to report on that. But the fact is that is what they're reporting on. It's showing us what gear was engaged, what revs or what throttle position, what steering position. The fact is that all comes from the EDR. That's not coming from the tech stream diagnostics. The mechanic doesn't need to know that shit.
No, it's almost as if they're trying to pull the same sort of argument that the GPS guy very well drilled down on. I mean, the whole argument over whether or not Waze was engaging with high accuracy GPS information and the health data was based on low accuracy. It's two separate apps accessing the same data, and the fact that now they're trying to obfuscate it in the opposite direction with the car, because
Right.
it's effectively the same argument. It's just in one instance it benefits the prosecution to say, well, no, it's based on information that's coming directly from the mechanics of the phone. It's just that it's being accessed from a different way. So that's why we say that the Waze was using the high accuracy data. Whereas in this instance, saying, oh no, we accessed this particular information via this way. So we're ignoring the fact that it's taking the information from a specific spot. And
Exactly.
they're sort of just going backwards and forwards and trying to obfuscate the fact that, oh no, there was other areas that we could have done searches on. It's just here's how we did it and here's how we're taking it in this instance, which is complete BS.
Yeah. Lon Solo is talking about pedestrian detection, and that's the thing that you're talking about, like so you don't reverse over a toddler, right?
That's part of, yeah. I mean, the I think the reverse. Actually, I think the reverse one's supposed to be more sensitive than. So, for example, I'm driving at the moment. For those of you that don't know, I do driving streams on my way to and from work every morning, and part of the reason why I'm always pulled over at the start of the stream is so that I'm not violating any laws. Um, sorry, have to include that disclaimer on pretty much any stream I'm ever on.
Yeah.
But my car specifically is a 2021 model, and it has the same sort of setup. I don't believe it's based on the Toyota Innards or anything like that, but it's got auto radar to stop both forward and reverse once the car is in gear. And I mean, I've actually been tempted to try it and see whether or not I'd even be able to reverse into somebody having that system activated. And
Right.
I
I
mean,
want to see how fast your car goes backwards because I reckon they've got a governor. I reckon
they probably do. There's probably a speed limiter as to how fast you can go in reverse these days.
right because it protects your drivetrain and everything. Well, you're not in a four-wheel drive, are you? So
Yeah, I am.
you are.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
So the
a small.
drivetrain,
Yeah.
the drivetrain on a four-wheel drive is quite different to a drivetrain on, say, a little sporty model Lexus, because
Mhm.
we've seen this same test done on a little sporty model. Aiden Carney has a little sporty model Lexus.
Mhm.
He did the whole reverse. He got up to 19 miles per hour. I don't reckon he was ever going to get anything faster than that going backwards because his model, like I said, it's sporty, it's governed at 19. From all the specs that I can find on the Lexus 570, it's a big ass luxury and four-wheel drive meant for rock crawling and shit.
Mhm.
So it's governed at between 14 and 16 miles per hour. I don't even think they could get that fast going backwards in that Lexus.
Well, yeah. I mean, that sort of thing. Oh, hang on, overbridge. Sorry, the feed cuts out whenever I go under an underpass.
Yep, good for the
Um,
warning. Thank you.
what was I going to say? I don't think I've ever actually been in a scenario where I've felt the need to test exactly how fast I can go in reverse. But the more that I think about it, the instances where I have actually, either my foot slipped and I've gunned it on the reverse in a parking lot or something like that, I don't think that I've ever got anywhere close to something like even 90 miles an hour.
Oh, it's scary shit.
Because
What is your car? Tell us what your car is.
it's an MG ZST. So
MGZST. That
yeah,
doesn't
so
tell me shit. What is it? MG.
it's the base model four wheel drive that they've got for the MGs. But I got
Right.
the I got the ZS Trophy Edition basically because it was on sale at the dealership at the time.
Right, so it's an
And
MG. Gotcha.
yeah, and like it's not the big SUV, but theoretically, if I wanted to, I could use my wife's car for that test because it's roughly the same size as Karen's car. We just, I mean, we liked her car so much that we went out and bought a version and just chucked it through the reduced section on the photocopier.
That's pretty much what Aiden's got. The same thing. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of like the Lexus, but the reduced version on the photocopier. No, he's got the sports version basically. So it's a little bit shorter, like in
Yep.
height, and it's built for sports, obviously. So
Yeah.
14 miles per hour is the speed of most bicycles, Lonsole said.
Yeah, that might. Because I mean, I'm sitting here in my head trying to do the conversion as well. What that would be in kilometers for us? I mean, that's 19. So what? Somewhere between 25 and 28 miles kilometers an hour in reverse. Like that's an insane speed for doing something in reverse for us. I can't imagine whether or not we'd even be able to cap that.
The speed for us that they're claiming is 24 miles per hour. That's nearly 40k an hour backwards. 40k an hour in reverse.
Oh no, there's no way in hell. I'm sorry. For those of you that don't know, 40k an hour is the maximum we're allowed to drive during a school zone.
Exactly. Let alone forwards, let alone backwards.
Yeah, that's honestly that's insane.
We actually have higher governance on cars here, like in the forwards direction. I think we've got in the forwards direction. I think we're governed at 190. I can't remember the actual law, but I think it's 190 in the forwards direction. But the reason that most companies do the reverse direction speed limiter is not necessarily because of laws, although different laws do apply in different countries and even different states. But it's also because it protects the gearbox and the drivetrain and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense, especially because, well, I mean, if it's you don't want to go from say doing 40 kilometers an hour straight, slamming it into reverse, dragging the drivetrain backwards, and then trying to match the same speed going the other way. It's you destroy the internals of the car.
Right. So they do it for warranty reasons, right? They've got to cover their parts and manufacture.
Well, exactly. I mean, like I had 7 years on this thing, and I've still got another 2.5 years to go. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, bad as it sounds, the company's been quite squirrely in trying to get out of the warranty as it is, let alone if you did some serious damage to the car.
Right. So that was my first sort of initial thing was he's saying this is Toyota Tech Stream diagnostic extraction. How the hell is he getting this, -5 +5 window of triggering events if he's not reading this data from EDR recorder. Because
Yeah, I thought he was just pulling that out of his backside.
I have a feeling it did come from somewhere, but because when we have never seen the actual data that they pulled,
Hmm.
they're only ever showing secondhand built spreadsheets by themselves. They've never actually showed us this is the data we pulled from the car.
Right.
I don't even know if they showed the defense this is what the data is that they pulled from the car. So, so the Bosch CDR reference guide SAE J1698 defines common trigger thresholds as delta V larger than 8 to 14 kilometers per hour. For Americans, that's 5 to 9 miles per hour. 0.7 grams, hang on, grams, G force is what I meant to say, acceleration. They're looking for a spike of 0.7 Gs over approximately 20 meters per second. So
Okay.
that's possibly why the reversing into John's car didn't trigger anything, because
Yeah, maybe it
exceed
was.
it didn't
Well, see,
exceed 3/4 of a G acceleration spike over 20 meters per second.
that to me is weird and a fundamental flaw in the system. Then, because that means you can have a low impact, you can have a low speed collision, and it wouldn't register at all,
Like running over a toddler, for example.
or even just backing very slowly into a backing very slowly into a wall.
Right.
I mean, that potentially could still do the same amount of damage, and if you hit it just right, I suppose, break a tail light or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's not going to get recorded either, then what good is the system?
What good is this bloody system? See, I've asked ChatGPT times to give me the breakdown on reversing over a toddler, and it's like totally doable. Anyone can reverse over a toddler. That's not how it works here in Australia, okay?
Oh,
your,
that's
your
horrifying.
vehicle will not reverse over a toddler here in Australia. It's part of the safety standard. Your vehicle, if it is equipped with this stuff, this technology that we're talking about, it will not reverse over a freaking child, okay?
Well, I mean, it's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to, right? So it's interesting that ChatGPT and Google won't actually pull up any manual data or like user manual or any sort of information regarding whether or not you could reverse over someone
Mm.
without the brakes and things activating themselves, which is definitely a law here in Australia. Like if you've got that equipment, it has to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got collision avoidance systems either on the front, I mean, if you've got it on the front, no. If you've got it on the back, you're supposed to have it on the front. You can have cars that have it on the front only. But basically, if there's a fault in the system, then ultimately the manufacturer winds up being responsible for it and liable for what happens. Because
Right.
um if you're oh, hang on, I gotta overtake a semi trailer. If you are
Focus now, don't crash on us.
it's all good. um if you're relying on a safety feature in a vehicle, then it has to work. I mean, if there was a default in a airbag system, for example, there was a massive recall here. What, 2-3 years ago, because there were airbags that were being installed into cars that were either not going off, or when they were going off, were shooting shrapnel in people's faces. Now, arguably, that same sort of issue should apply to any sort of safety feature that is installed in any other vehicle.
Yeah.
So if it's designed to stop people from getting run over and it's not working, then yeah, that's an issue.
Right. You know where? Here's a funny thing. Guess where the anti-collision sensor is on her Model Lexus? Have a guess where it is. They're on the back end. They've got them
On
on
the
the
back
front end
end.
as well. But have a guess where it is on the back end.
If I had to guess, installed along the lower bumper under the tailgate.
Right on the side of the car,
Yeah.
where John was literally standing when the tail
So
light
the
hit
sensors are right there. Okay.
it.
Yep,
That's
that
where they
makes
are.
sense.
I actually pulled up. I actually do have a video on it, but you're driving, so I don't want you to crash, so I can show you that shit. But there's a sensor. There's two on each side at the back.
Mhm.
There's one right on the quarter panel of the bumper, underneath like directly under that tail light.
Yep.
And there's another one a little further in, sort of closer to where your number plate would go, and it's the same on the opposite side. So
All right.
there's two sensors at the back, on each side at the back. The ones at the front are kind of same sort of thing on your sort of level with your quarter panel, and then two in the grill area. So that's where they are on that particular model of Lexus. So I just found that very interesting, that sensor is right where they're saying he hit.
Yeah, and those sensors have a fairly wide range as well. There's a reason why there's 4 or 5 of them spaced across your bumper, but basically the sensor range is supposed to overlap so that there's no dead spots. If he was anywhere near that rear bumper, it should have been going off.
Right. So if you're going 24 miles per hour, that actually equates to, this is 38 point, hang on, let me just convert that for you, 38.6 kilometers per hour. That equates to 10.7 meters per second. And he says he has a 5-second span prior to the trigger and a 5-second span after. So over 10 seconds, it should have traveled meters per second, more than 100 meters, right?
Oh yeah, five before, 5 after. Yeah, so see, that math just doesn't work out. That dog don't hunt.
That dog don't hunt. On top of that, you're talking about a curb weight of 6,000 pounds, which is for Australians 2,700 kilos, hitting John's body, which is 90 kilos or 200 pounds for everybody else. We're talking about 145 times more momentum than the pedestrian.
Mhm.
So even with a glancing or partial strike, the vehicle deceleration spike is measurable, and that's what the EDR is supposed to log.
Yeah.
So we don't have the EDR logging anything. Well, they reckon they do, but they don't have that deceleration. They have a steering change. They have it hitting the brakes and going forwards and taking off again to head back to Meadows. But there's no deceleration upon impact. The only thing Trooper Paul pointed out was a steering change.
Right.
A steering direction.
So, I mean, are they trying to make the argument that because she was braking at the time when he was hit, that it didn't override like there was no secondary input to record the deceleration given that one was already occurring? Or, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around how they would even remotely say, well, she was engaging in a 3-point turn at some point, but she definitely hit him and flung him 30 feet in the air and left his shoe behind. Every time I spend more time thinking about this case, it gets more and more batshit insane.
Right. And there's other things that don't actually match up either. So if you were going to do 65 feet at 24 miles per hour, how much time would it take you to travel that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get 1.85 seconds, but 2 seconds. She should have been able to travel that distance in 2 seconds. But they've got it over 5 seconds, over 5 seconds and 5 seconds before the trigger event and 5 seconds after the trigger event. So that's 10 seconds. That's fucking walking speed.
Mm-hmm. And that's not even taking into account the time that it would take for her to decelerate if she did reverse for the 3-point turn as well. I mean, she's not going to have her... It's not that her foot's on the acceleration the entire time and then she just comes to a dead stop either. Like, when you're turning, you have to apply the brake, and it does take, even if it's a fraction of a second, it still takes time to come to a stop, switch into drive, and then move off.
Right.
Like,
right.
There's a heap of variables there that I don't believe are being well explained either.
Well, I think what they're saying is that she did the 3-point turn just around the corner. So it's like 4 or 5 houses away. I've got this, I pulled it up on Google satellite. It's like 4 or 5 houses away. She goes past 34 Fairview, two houses past, two blocks, two house blocks past, does a 3-point turn there, takes her 8 minutes before she's out the front of 34 Fairview, reversing into John.
Right.
That's basically what they're claiming. So she did the 3-point turn because she overshot she overshot Fairview Road. She did that 3-point turn on, I can't remember the name of the street, turned around, came back, gave way to the young kids that were going there to meet the sister.
Yep.
They gave way to her. She pulled in front of them, stopped at the front of 34 Fairview. That would have only taken seconds. Like, I timed that on the animation thing with Google Earth Studio.
Mhm.
That's only 30 seconds, from the turnaround point to getting in front of 34 Fairview. So she sat there for 8 minutes before she whacked it in reverse and ran over him. That's what they're claiming, rather
Right.
than it's all part of the same accident.
Yeah.
So just to clear that up for you. But
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
so this also does all of these numbers still don't take into account that, post 2018 Lexus 570s are all known to have reverse governing speeds at around 14 to 16 miles per hour maximum, and on icy snow covered road, forget it, because the traction control and the ABS would kick in.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose my next question is, are the defense going to have someone from Lexus on the stand to actually attest to that? Because, I mean, that would more or less blow a good chunk of the prosecution's case out of the water then. Because
I can't see Lexus doing it. They're opening themselves up to litigation, but I can see the ARCA guy doing it, because Dr. Wolf is actually qualified in all the Lexus tech stream shit. He's written papers on it and everything.
I mean, as long as someone can get up there and say, no, well, Lexus physically cannot go that fast, especially in the snow, I think that's really the main thing, I suppose. I mean, a good chunk of this is predicated on her being able to attain that speed in a very short period of time. If the car isn't physically capable of attaining that speed, irrespective of the amount of time, then it blows a good chunk of their theory completely out of the water.
Right. And if the ARCA guys can prove that the Lexus is governed at 14 to 16 miles per hour in reverse to protect the drivetrain and gearbox shit, that blows it out of the water. Here's the other thing that blows it out of the water. The actual key cycle. They're saying it happened on key cycle 1162. And if you go backwards from Trooper Paul's 1167 testing key cycle back to 1162, you end up with the cars in the police custody, not in Karen's.
Yep.
It leaves Karen's custody. I forget. Chat, remind me what we worked out. It leaves Karen's custody at around 1158, I think it is, or 1159. Something like that. That's the last time she drove it. And then 1160 is the tow truck, I think it goes on the tow truck, and then 1161 off the tow truck, 1162 the fuck around in the Sally Port. I think that's how it goes, because I worked it out going backwards. I'm really straining my memory here because I'm going forwards. But I think that actually screws up their entire this data matches this key cycle as well. Don't know who can testify to that, but here's how they could do it. They could just show all the CCTVs of her car starting and stopping. There's obviously, she's at the waterfall. She leaves the waterfall. Obviously, you could say, all right, she doesn't turn her. Yeah, Lon Solo's with me. 1162 is the tow truck. That's what I reckon too. It's exactly what I reckon, just working it all out. But if you said, oh, she here's the waterfall. We know she started the car there. If you said she didn't turn it off, she just sat out the front of at the front of 34 Fairview with the car running because she thought he was going to come back. Then the next key cycle is when she starts it to go to look for him in the morning, to go to Jen McCabe's place. Did she turn it off at Jen McCabe's place? That's why I say it could be 5'8" or 5'9", because I don't know if she turned it off at Jen's place so that they could stand there and argue about the freaking tail light. Then she parks it up in John's driveway, and then she drives it from John's driveway over to her parents' house, and then the tow truck driver pulls it up onto the truck, and then he pulls it off the truck. Now, we heard of 2 manipulations at Sallyport. One of them was getting it off the truck, and they drove it into the Sallyport the wrong way, and then they drove it back out and turned it around and brought it in the other way. So we know there's 2 key cycle events there. Then they had to start it up to bring it out for Trooper Paul to do his testing, and then they had to start it up to then he does his testing, turns it off, starts talking about whatever his test results are. Then they got to start it again and put it back in the Sallyport. Then they got to take it out of the Sallyport and put it on a tow truck for the jurors in trial 1.0 to look at it.
Yep.
So these are all racking up. You get what I'm saying? Like we're well and truly past 1167 now.
Yeah, okay. Look, I hate to interrupt. I have to get petrol, so I'm just going to duck out for a second.
That's all right. Duck out, and I'll just cover some more notes while you're ducking.
By the way, you don't have to not show stuff on the stream as well. I mean, just because I can't look at it doesn't mean we can't discuss it.
I'm scared you will look at it, but I want to be responsible for anything.
Oh, you'll be fine.
All right, let me just pop some more things up on the screen. Where are we? So let's go to that, so you guys can see my notes where I was at with some of this stuff. So yeah, Mr. Welcher, are you aware that the Lexus 570 is electronically limited in reverse speeds to far below 24 miles per hour? So if the vehicle's max reverse speed is 14 miles per hour, how is it possible that your crash model assumes 24 miles per hour impact? That's a good questioning strategy. Not that I'm telling the defense what they should do, but that's what I'd be asking him. First up, right? For me, I am on the not guilty side. Let's just read some comments because I've got Hayden on. We're not going through the comments. They're not convinced me to a 40% chance to hit him, let alone beyond reasonable doubt. If anything, Commonwealth suggests to me he fell. So far, that's what they seem to be doing, suggesting he fell. It's not really helping their situation either. Very much, is it? It's not working. I find it extremely hard that definitive footage of the taillight is nowhere to be found. Indeed, Dandy. Trooper Paul first report in the first trial had no dates and times. They were blank. Well, the column was removed completely. So I thought Trooper Paul said 1162 was crash, and AJ reworked it and figured out it was actually when it was put on the tow truck. Something like that. Now, we got to go with what AJ says about that key cycle, because he's the one who talks to the actual defendant. She knows when she turned her car on and off. So anyway, moving on in my notes. So Karen's 570 would be governed at about 14 to 16 miles per hour because it's a four-wheel drive. It's meant for that type of operation, and that's also drivetrain preservation. But the LX570S or the GR Sports, that's the one that Aiden Carney has. That would be around the 18 and 19 miles per hour. And the fact that he couldn't get any faster than 19 miles per hour tells me that's where his car is governed. I don't think he could have gotten past that, no matter how many times he tried. So it's tuned for a high response because it's a sports model, okay? It's a sports transmission. It's not this big four-wheel drive rock climbing transmission. So that's why I think he was able to get a little faster from his test. For those who saw that test, Trooper Paul's infamous test drive video, though, what I was able to measure by getting the AI to clock the speed and the seconds is that he wasn't able to get it up to 24 miles per hour. I think he was only able to get it up to the 14 to 16, no matter how many times he tried. Otherwise, he would have showed us the dash, right? He would have showed us on the dash where he got it up to 24 miles per hour. And he didn't do that. So I think that was just an embarrassing attempt. I don't think he actually did. She actually did. I don't think he actually did get it up to that speed that he was trying to test it at. We've already discussed that, showing the CCTV footage of each key cycle blows Welcher out of the water, which I think they should do with Welcher. Welcher's copy of the ring cam video suddenly doesn't have Hulk green interior. Do you all remember the other day when they showed the Karen reversing out of John's garage, and it was all the colors were all like completely turned up like to the max, and it had a Hulk green interior. Do you remember that?
Yes. The way that they messed with the hue and the saturation in order to make it look like the lights were different. That was completely disgusting.
Right, the interior of a car looked like a fucking disco ball was going off, and but his version shows it exactly how it should be, like how it was originally.
Yeah.
So with just the tan seats, basically. So what else did we cover? Oh yeah, the old let me create something you already have in HD just to look busy move. Ka-ching, there's dollars. So basically he took Karen reversing out of John's garage
Mhm.
video, and then he did like a 3D scan of that, and then he recreated Karen reversing out of John's garage with a 3D scan model.
Okay, and what exactly was that? What was he trying to prove using that? Because it's not like you can rely on that in any way. That could easily be manipulated to show whatever you wanted.
Exactly. That's why I say it. It's the let me create something we already have in HD video just to look busy move. Just so we can charge the Commonwealth $55,000 for something we didn't need to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what he proved. I think what he thought he was proving was that if Karen's vehicle intersected John's Traverse on that straight diagonal or straight 45-degree angle, that it wouldn't have hit her taillight. I think that's what he was trying to get at, but it kind of fell short for me. I don't think he got
Right.
there. But I feel like that's what he was trying to do, to try and say her car on this angle and his car on that angle, her taillight would not have connected with his car. But I don't know why he decided to do that from the perspective of the ring cam, like up on the roof looking down on it from that perspective. Why didn't he just say, I've got John's Traverse because I was in the freaking driveway plotting it. I did the 3D laser on his Traverse in the driveway. Here's all the data points. Here's Karen's vehicle. Bam, those parts don't line up. But he didn't do that. He didn't. And there is a slight angle on it. It's not totally a 45-degree reverse jobby.
Mhm.
She sort of comes out on a 45-degree angle, but then she sort of turns her back end towards the car a little bit.
Yep.
So that changes where the impact might have been. So her bumper probably was not connected to his bumper because it wasn't 45 degrees. Do you get
Yep.
what I'm saying? It was
Mhm.
probably like more 50 to 55 degrees by the time she actually connected with his car.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem like a straightforward exercise to me to take both cars, or at least identical models anyway, and see if there is any way, shape, or form that the two can intersect at a reasonable angle as seen in the video, to see whether or not it's possible for the taillight to have cracked with her hitting that. I
Right.
mean,
Sorry, 90 degrees. You're right, Bob. I'm saying it wrong. 90-degree angle, not 45. And then it would have had to have been like 105 degrees by the time she actually did connect with the car. I was saying 45 degrees. Bob's correcting me there.
Fair enough.
Well, I got my angles a bit mixed up. I got so much
That's
on my
all right.
screen.
So long as we're not being obtuse about it, that's the main thing. Oh,
Yeah.
bad dad joke.
All right. Hi, Tom CPU. Thanks for joining us, buddy. All right. So, what else do we have? This is just basically doing the shortcut so that Hayden knows what happened in court today because he hasn't watched it yet, and I don't want to do my full notes on it and spoil and give him spoilers. So,
Oh, don't stress. Like at this point, the number of spoilers that I get throughout the day when I have updates popping up on X and that sort of thing, I've resigned myself to the fact that I'm going to go in with a little bit of pre-knowledge now. So I don't want you holding anything back from your audience on my account. That's no.
radio.
That's all good.
So the next thing we go from, this let's recreate what we've already got on the ring cam for no particular reason. We go to freaking he officially crosses over from expert witness into low budget cosplay. He's
Oh,
like
no.
he's like, I bought a pair of sneakers exactly the same as John's. I bought a pair of jeans the same brand. I bought a shirt the same brand and the same color as John's. I also bought a hat the same brand and the same color as John's. I also bought a fucking Lexus 2021 model, the same
Okay.
as Karen's. So, and then he's like, John's kind of the same weight and height as me, give or take half an inch. So then
Oh, come on.
he's standing behind Karen's car going, look, this spoiler at the back, so the wind spoiler on the top of the hatch lid.
Yep.
What do you call that? I think it's a wind. What is it called? It's a spoiler anyway. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. And the strip that goes. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's hit John in the head, but somehow the bumper, which sticks out way further than the spoiler, missed his fucking knees. Oh, wait a second. He does have a graze on one knee. A graze, not a fucking broken knee or a fucking kneecap missing. He has a slight graze on one knee,
Yeah.
or abrasion on one knee, but he's got 2 broken eye sockets. So, yeah, that's where we get into cosplay. Excuse me, choking on my own words here. So yeah, he's dressed in John's clothes, John's sand shoes, standing beside the car going, yeah, I reckon this spoiler hit John in the left and right friggin' temple somehow. But the last guy, the brain doctor fella,
Yeah.
the neurosurgeon, he said, no, the brain probably bounced around and bruised different parts.
Yeah, and caused the raccoon eyes because it hit the front of his this bit. I can't remember what it's called.
Temporal lobes.
Thank you.
But yeah, it kind of contradicts what that guy was saying, right? If he's physically smacked in the eyeballs by the spoiler, which, most of our eyes are set back from our nose bone. I don't see how it got his eyeballs and not his nose. But anyway, it's a straight spoiler. How did it get his eyes but not his nose?
What kind of weird contortionist position are they proposing that John was in for him to get hit in various ways like that? Like
what kind
when
of
he was standing
scientist
behind the
are you
car.
to fucking make these claims? Like, how can you even put physics into the same sentence as what I just fucking described?
Mm-hmm.
The spoiler would have to be the shape of his face and somehow wrap around his nose to whack him in the eyeballs, right?
She must have planned that meticulously to take a mask of his face to then shape her spoiler. Like,
oh my god, it's ridiculous. I mean, let's just think about it logically. If he was off to the side of the car and it only hit his arm, so that maybe the spoiler only hit one side of his head, but he's got two fucking black eyes and broken temple bones on each side of his skull.
Mhm.
Like, if it was only one side of his face that was injured, I would go, "You're right. That's a possibility," but it's not. We're gonna have Doctor Stonebridge come back. You remember the chick with the green dress and the tats from last trial?
Oh yeah, yep.
Triple certified bloody ME or whatever she is. She'll be coming back to testify for the defense and explain once again how the orbital sockets on both sides of his eye, on both eyes, were broken.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see how Brennan handles her. That's gonna be fun to me, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I actually quite liked her. A lot of people were very judgmental about her because she had tats.
Really?
And she wore a lovely green forest green dress. They were like, ew. I don't know why people were judging her. I'm right into tats. My son's a tattooist. Well, retired now, but he was a tattooist for 10 years,
Mhm.
15 years. I can't even remember how many years now. So I'm right into tats. I like tats on cheeks. I like tasteful tats on cheeks. And I thought hers were tasteful. So sue me. Anyway, moving on to what was next. Oh my god, I decided that this was not peer-reviewed science. Him dressing up like this and then he greased the taillight in blue grease, like blue face paint, and had his driver reverse into him at 2 miles per hour to show how the taillight nudged his arm and left blue grease on his arm in the vicinity of where John's injuries were.
Oh, that's amazingly scientific. Like,
Isn't it? I felt like we left science and into, peer pressured fantasy rather than peer reviewed science.
you know how a lot of like the mainstream media take cracks at people like us for being independent journalists? I kind of
Yeah.
feel like this guy's an independent scientist. Like,
Of course. He's a peer pressure scientist, not a peer reviewed one.
yeah, he's the one that got bullied at school. That's for sure.
Right.
Like,
So what I would have picked just in that experiment, why didn't you grease the bumper? Because in that little experiment where you got nudged by the car, your fucking leg connected with the bumper. So why didn't you grease the bumper and show us where the bumper would not have hit John in the knees?
yeah.
Because it definitely knocked him in the knees. So the Lexus bumper sticks out like, I reckon, a good 10 inches from the body.
Yeah, it sticks out like Jen McCabe's underbite.
Right.
It's gonna get you in the legs. It's not like, even if he was bent over facing towards the car like that, we'd still see completely different
Injuries.
None of it makes sense.
Well, he's trying real hard to make it make sense. It's just not working. Have you seen Be in Trouble 31's channel where he's a panel beater?
Okay.
I think by trade, or a mechanic, I'm not sure. But anyway, he went and actually bought. Have you seen what I'm talking about? He went and bought.
No, I haven't. So yep. So he went and bought what?
He's bought a couple of Lexus taillights, and they're like $1,000 a pop, or maybe $2,000 a pop. I can't remember exactly, but they're like expensive. And he bought a ballistic gel arm with bones in it, like Mythbusters use.
Oh wow! So he went the full hole. Wow. Okay.
Like everything.
See, this is what I would expect from a legitimate scientist, to actually, use proper material. And I don't know, don't try and run yourself over with a car with blue grease. What the?
So then so what Be in Trouble did was he strapped it onto the back of his car, strapped the taillight onto the back of his car, and held the arm out, got his wife, I think, to drive the car at 24 miles per hour, held the arm out, but he kind of threw it a little bit into the taillight, because you don't want to be fucking holding onto it and break your own arms trying to do the experiment. But there's the only thing I could probably fault about the experiment was that he literally did have to let the arm go. He probably should have mounted the arm on something.
I was going to say that probably would have been better for him to just try and mount it. I mean, you can get even with a 2x4 and a clamp or something like that, just so that you could hit it at speed.
I think that's the only thing I could fault him for in that experiment. But otherwise, he broke the arm in multiple places. As you would expect, the elbow had been smashed and was protruding through the ballistics gel. The longest part of the forearm bones, I don't remember the name of these bones, but Lon Solo's going to correct me here. I won't even name it. I'll let Lon Solo tell us what it is. But yeah, that longest bone in your forearm, that broke. And I think there was also a broken, one of the top bones at the top of the arm were broken as well.
Right, okay.
So, and the wrist, I think, also some damage to the wrist.
Which is sort of what you'd expect if you get hit by a car moving at speed.
Right, exactly. It pretty much matched up. I mean, I think the point I'm trying to say is that a panel beater did a better friggin' experiment than an engineer, is what I'm trying to say here. Radius and ulnar. Thank you, Dandy.
Oh, okay. So that's, yeah.
Radius and ulnar and the wrist and the elbow were both mangled up as well. So, but those were the bones that were broken in BN Trouble's experiment. So then the next thing he does is he decides, this is a friggin' 190-page PowerPoint presentation, by the way. He's not.
Oh,
he's only
up, yep.
He's only up to page 150, 105 today. But anyway, the next thing he tries to do is he match up the parts of the tail light that were found at the scene with the scratches on John's arm. But the problem with that is that we just heard a couple of days ago from the lab tech who said there was no blood or tissue or any evidence of contact on the plastic shards. Yeah, he's making.
And that's that. But the thing that I never wrapped my head around was if those shards allegedly did that damage to his arm, how were there not pieces of tail light lodged in his arm? How were they not?
And flesh on the tail light.
Exactly. He's
makes
no sense.
Holes in his arms. He's got gashes in his arm. There should be skin and flesh and shit on the tail light shards. There should be tail light shards, fragments in his clothes.
Exactly.
Sorry, in his wound, not just on his clothes, is what I was trying to say there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he goes off on that tangent, which was like weird. Oh, and then the next thing he does is he's like, let's talk about the debris field. I'm like, what fucking debris field? Like, nobody wrote a single piece of information about where John's body was, where the debris were found on that little location. Nobody plotted anything. There's no plotted data from anybody about where anything was found, let alone John's body. So that was a bit of a hole in his story there. You can't say, well, you know, this debris was found where his body was found if nobody fucking located where the body was found, right? We just had multiple witnesses testify they didn't write that information.
Bother to plot it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just did, guys. That's right. It just did.
Trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro. So, yeah, then we go on to he does a whole like full fan. He starts talking about the so he pulls up a bunch of data for like slip and fall accidents or falling accidents and how that looks on the skull, how a falling accident looks versus fighting kind of injuries. But all he's doing now is giving evidence that it could have been a fall. He's using that evidence to say it could have been a fall. He's supposed to be supporting that it was a fly through the air and high impact smash to the head bone. But that's not what he's doing. He's going, I'm going to try and rule out fighting and injuries from being punched.
I'm gonna. In trying to poke holes in the defense's argument, he's kicked an own goal against the prosecution by saying, "Well, here's how I know that it wasn't fighting, because here's evidence that looks like it from fall damage."
Exactly.
Oh my god.
Exactly. And now they've officially got 3 witnesses who have testified it could be from a fall. He's the third witness that says, well, it could be from a fall. It could be consistent with a fall.
Oh, the closing's going to be beautiful on this, I swear.
I expect them to switch tacks from here. What do you think? I expect the defense to go, we've now got 3 of their witnesses saying it could be from a fall. I think they should lean into that.
As do I. I'd say, as opposed to pivoting and changing tact, I think that they still need to run the third-party culprit defense. But at the same time, they most definitely need to hammer with their own witnesses. Because it's not as if it takes much to ask additional questions of their own witnesses. They're already going to have the ARCA guys. They're already going to have their own medically trained professionals up there. In addition to saying, well, could this have been from a fight? It takes an extra 30 seconds to say, so if it hadn't been a fight, could it have been from a fall?
Yeah.
All this is allowing them to do is add additional branches to the... Sorry. It allows them to add additional...
pathways to
pathways.
possibilities. Yeah.
Exactly. What I was trying to get at is, it's got I don't know what you call the little branches on a tree. But basically, what I was trying to say is, it's adding additional things where they can just take the branch and wallop Brennan over the head with it.
Right. Well, you want a bigger branch than a little one, but yeah, I get what you're
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's adding more weight to it, and it's adding more, it's not going to be a log, but there's different branches of avenue that basically to do additional damage to him.
There's way more possibilities than just Karen was there, the car was there, and she reversed over him.
Exactly.
So that's what I feel like they should lean into, and then maybe a little off the third party and a little bit more heavily into this is why they covered it up.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
So something along those lines, like let the jury make their own leaps to the who hit him inside the house, because we're not the defense isn't supposed to solve that, and neither is the jury, but they can make their own leaps. If you don't directly lead them there, you can leave enough of a trail to lead them there.
Exactly. It's better to give the jury ambiguity for them to follow their own threads and come up to the decision, well, this is something that could have possibly have happened. Because as soon as you do that, and if you leave it open-ended for the jury to be thinking about it, all of a sudden you've got reasonable doubt anyway. So they don't want to be trying to hammer home too hard on, oh, yeah, sure, okay, it was definitely Brian Albert or it was definitely Brian Higgins. Because frankly, I mean, if they say, well, it could have been either of them, and I know that they can't mention Colin too much anyway because Bev was Bev, but I mean, they can still intimate about it.
Right. That's what I think.
But the more opportunity they give the jury to... Sorry?
That's all right. You cut out for a second. I was filling some space, but carry on.
Oh, I was just saying that the more avenue they give for the jury to sit and make inferences and realize that there are additional avenues for this to have all occurred, the more likelihood they are to come back and say, well, no, we don't think she did it.
Or we just don't have enough proof that she did, because there's too many possibilities. So I think people are really stuck in their own mindsets of you have to prove that the McAlberts did it or else it's not a fair trial. It's like, no, all we got to do is get Karen off murder charges and then we can prove all the other shit. You know what I mean?
That's it, exactly. And I mean, look, people are very focused on, oh, well, we need to nail the McAlberts to the wall and that sort of thing. And as you said, no, that's really not the case. This is Karen focused. Right. I mean, as bad as it sounds, there are still theories that are completely plausible that don't involve the McAlberts at all. And it's more about making sure that there's enough avenues so that she doesn't spend the rest of her life behind bars.
Exactly. So, for those who don't actually know, because I didn't introduce him properly, Hayden
All
is
good.
actually a lawyer. He's a Australian. In Australia, we call them solicitors, but he works in a slightly different area of law, equivalent to a barrister, and you can fill in the rest.
Fair enough, guys. So basically, I've been in legal practice for going on. I mean, in one way, shape, or form, over a decade. I I've owned my own practice for a few years. I'm currently actually working with a financial firm to assist farmers here in Victoria, in order to give them a little bit of a leg up with everything that's going on currently with the economy. But I also have a YouTube channel, and to make things easier for those of you across the pond, as we say, I actually named I renamed my channel recently to Attorney Aussie Overlord, just so there's less ambiguity about it. Makes it easier for people to understand. But so surprisingly, I do actually know what I'm talking about on occasion. I do defer to my American colleagues on various things, but thankfully, because the systems all really stem from the common law setup, I can still comment on whatever I want.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And I will get one of my mods to post your link in the chat as well, so people can find your new channel. Except I gotta find the damn thing myself and give it to the mods. Give me 1 sec, and I will give it to the mods. Yeah. So essentially, the discussion now with Hayden is what path would you take as a lawyer? And I think we're both kind of on the same page here, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, in my coverage of this, I've tried to be fairly. I mean, as with any case, my philosophy in a criminal case is you absolutely go into every criminal case, irrespective of what's been shown in the media, irrespective of what's been known, shall we say. You have to go in with, oh no, the defendant is absolutely innocent, and it is up to the prosecution to prove their case. Because if you don't take it from that avenue, innocent people wind up behind bars. Because as we've seen, I mean, imagine if this had happened to somebody that did not have the financial resources of Karen Reid in order to try and fight this. It may have been an instance where someone like, not to cast aspersions against Brennan, but someone might have been coerced, for example, into taking a plea deal. As we've seen in certain text messages in this case, that as Karen didn't take the plea deal, it turned into a whole thing.
Right.
But I'm very much on the way that the justice system is set up. Is my opinion is you have to go into it in favor of the defense, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I have completely lost my train of thought.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are coming at it that we just need to nail the McAlberts, but at this stage we've got three of the state's own witnesses saying it could have been a fall.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where we were headed with. Yeah, maybe we might see not a pivot, but as you say, leaning more heavily into what has come out through the state witnesses rather than going full on with the original plan.
Yeah, and that's something that as an attorney you need to be able to do. You do need to be able to pivot and think on your feet like that. And thankfully, Jackson and Yannetti were both pretty good at that in the first trial as well. There were certain instances where they asked questions of certain witnesses where I could very much see what they were looking to go for, but then it was very clear that when Lally did redirect and something further came out based on what he'd asked questions of, and they did a recross, they went on a completely different tangent. And it's impressive to be able to see trial attorneys do that. It's a skill that we do have to have that not everyone's great at. I'll be perfectly honest. Even after 10 years, I'm still developing certain aspects of that.
Right.
You've got to be able to think on your feet, and you've got to be able
We
to
saw
try and
that
build
with
this.
we
Sorry?
saw that with Lally in trial 1.0. He wasn't able to pivot
Exactly.
as well as the defense was. So
Yeah.
So Michael wants to know, do y'all wear wigs and shit in Australia?
I haven't had to do that, thankfully. Barristers still will if they're in the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal.
Or the High Court?
Or the High Court. That's the really big one. Is if you're doing it in the High Court, you basically, I mean, it's a sign of respect that you do. I've seen barristers that haven't, but generally they're silks or senior counsel that, in their own right, might as well be judges. So, but the judges definitely do.
we're not as pedantic about the wigs here unless you're in the higher courts.
Yeah, I mean, the judges still wear the wigs mainly for criminal trials, especially high-profile ones. Originally, it was in order to protect their identities, of all things. I think it's just that a bunch of them started going bald by they got to this time that they were on the stand.
Right, and it happens too. My son started going bald from wearing a hat too much, so it does do that. It wears your hair off.
Oh yeah, no, my uncle was bald by the time he was my age because he wore a baseball cap everywhere he went, and
Right.
for years I was terrified that I'd go bald like him, and thankfully no.
Thankfully, no. All right. So, where else were we at? So, I think Judge Bev actually tried to pull a bit of a Swifty today because
Oh,
we
okay.
finished up last week where it's actually complex. We finished up last week where the defense had objected to this change in their timeline that Burgess tried to do, but then what's his name today? Welcher today. His report was based on Burgess's timeline. So if Burgess changed the timeline, he had to change his timeline as well. So they both got switched. But they complained about Burgess changing the timeline, and Judge Bev went, "Oh, I don't even know what she said, to be honest, because it was all at sidebar." And next minute he's on the stand anyway. And then that's how it ended. Burgess got himself fried, like handed a new asshole on the last, I think it was Thursday.
Yeah.
And then we open up court today and they're straight into Alessi asking Welcher, who told you to change the timeline? So a lot of shit happened between then and now, and I don't know what the fuck what happened because that's what opening camera was. The opening scene was on camera today. Just Alessi frying Welcher's ass about. So I think it was like a voir dire for admissibility, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because if he's gone through and changed things in the interim, in the middle, that's why I can't get over the fact that Bev's allowing this sort of thing. I mean, if someone tried to manipulate and change evidence mid-trial here, they wouldn't be allowed to take the stand. The report never should have seen the inside of that courtroom.
Right, it's a judge that's a gatekeeper.
Exactly. And
so the thing is, even after this little mini voir dire, she was like, "Okay, bring in the jury," and continued with his. Off they went with his testimony. So she didn't even make a ruling on it. It was kind of like she was giving him she gave Alessi the concession. Okay, you can ask him. Now let's move on. There was no.
Yeah, because if she hadn't given him the opportunity for the voir dire, it would have been an appealable issue. So
is it not already?
Oh no, the fact that she didn't allow him one would have been an appealable issue itself. Right. The report itself may well be an appealable issue on its own. But specifically, she's trying to avoid judicial appealable issues there because, I mean, to me, the ways and shapes that she's going to cause appealable issues on their own just are mounting up. Honestly,
yeah, I'm up to
between
48,
the appearance of
48 possibly reversible decisions.
Damn. See, I haven't been keeping track, but the egregious ones, the ones where she appeared to be falling asleep, and I say appeared because I have to give her professional courtesy, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, you're allowed to. We won't kick you for it.
Oh no, I know you won't, but as bad as it sounds, because of how overregulated we are here, I have to be careful about my own practicing certificate because there's a disparagement of other solicitors, even if they're overseas and all that sort of stuff. So. Yeah. But I've been fairly critical of her. If she wanted to, she could have a crack at me already. So I suppose it doesn't really matter. There's been several, shall we call them, missteps that she's made.
Yeah.
That I don't understand why she's trying so hard. I mean, so the fact that she wants this trial over and done with so she can start her new gig is very apparent to me. It's very much.
She could have just walked out and let another judge take over back before trial 1.0.
Exactly. So that's why it tells me she's got personal skin in this.
Yeah.
Because why would you purposefully delay taking on a new position where you have significantly more clout or whatever else, continuing to fail upwards, basically.
Failing upwards.
And to and to continue to rule over this case unless there was a specific reason for it. And my own personal opinion is Morrissey.
Yep.
They've for whatever engagement they have behind the scenes, my understanding is he was quite instrumental in getting her elected in the first place. I mean, any other how do I word this? Any other judge that had less ties to the individuals in this case or to the DA's office would have made some very different rulings, in my own personal opinion.
Exactly. Just in a black and white, like I'm only looking at this in a black and white sense. You know, if I Google whatever about whatever ruling, I come up with a completely different, you know, outcome to what she actually rules on. So you're talking from experience. So if we're both coming to the same conclusions, then you know there's obviously something wrong there. The audience is correcting you. No, Hayden, she did fall asleep.
Yeah, no, I'm fairly confident that she did too, people. I just have to be careful with what I say.
Yeah, look, I have a bigger issue with the body language signaling Brennan when she
like that all of its own is inappropriate conduct as well. Like,
right. And I had an issue with it with Lally, but it wasn't as obvious with Lally. Like she could have like explained it away with Lally. It was much more subtle with Lally and easily explained away. Whereas now it's getting to the point where this is pretty obvious, the shit that she's doing. So
yeah, she's sitting there calling signals like a baseball coach. Honestly, you got Brennan on second. He's thinking about whether or not he wants to steal, and she's telling him, "No, I'm going to try and do something else. We're gonna call the end of the day or whatever else." And it's just it's so when it's so blatantly obvious, but it's still annoying because she's still dancing the line because the defense would need to be able to prove exactly what the intent was in order to claim judicial misconduct. And you got to remember, this is a woman that's sitting there knowing she's got judicial immunity for whatever she does during the case.
Right.
And that needs to go out the window. I have always been against qualified and judicial immunity. Judges very much need to be held accountable for their conduct during a case.
Right. I think she blew some of her judicial immunity by letting Fanning oversee the jury last trial, and because that was outside of her judicial role.
Yeah.
And then letting him come in with some sort of story to have to dismiss a juror. I think that was outside of her judicial role. And I think that act alone, that's why she came in so heavily on the motion to dismiss. Like 90% of her reply to the motion to dismiss was defending herself for having Fanning involved in this whole freaking scenario.
Yeah.
So you can tell she knows that was a fuck up because of how much attention she paid to it in the motion to dismiss. Whereas everything else was just sort of a, so what if Michael Morris, so what if Proctor committed, I can't even think of the name of the offences now, hiding the evidence.
Yeah.
I forget what those are, violations, but you get where I'm coming from. I don't know why my brain's gone blank. What's the violation I'm looking for? When they don't hand over the evidence to the defense.
The Rule 14 violations, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. What's the federal one called? Chat's going to pipe up and fill it in for us. I don't know
hopefully, because you caught me on the hop too. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's just like gone out of my head. Well, we know what we mean. There's a ton of them, but she treated those like commas and not exclamation marks, basically.
Yeah.
But she put a lot more attention towards denouncing the defense's accusations
and accusations, yeah,
with the whole juror misconduct stuff. She knows that that's going to completely undo her judicial immunity. That will cancel it out if she was found to be doing that. Did you actually get did you actually get any like inclination about that when Karen took the first complaint to the SJC, the Michael Morrissey's office defended Judge Beverly Cannoni at the SJC. Did you come to any decision on that, like whether that was appropriate or inappropriate or what?
I mean, part of it is that anybody has the right to their own attorney. So, I mean, the fact that they basically did it on the tax dollar, I thought was inappropriate. I do think that there might have been conflict of interest there.
Yep.
But I don't think it was enough to warrant an application to have them removed from the case or anything like that. I mean, like I said, she's got just as much right to have anyone represented that she wants. Really, it's the same. It's part of the reason I think that part might actually be part of the reason why Bev didn't have Jackson removed when she gave every indication that she was going to. Because, I mean, if the same argument can be made against her, then I don't think she would have enjoyed that either.
But he would have come out fighting, and that would have been one of the things he would have gone after, because it completely killed neutrality. If the same people who are prosecuting Karen Reid are representing the judge who's made a mistake, then that kills judicial neutrality, right?
Look, not necessarily, because what the defense would have needed to have shown is that there was some inherent conflict that would cause actual damage to Karen. And I mean, any information that was passed and that sort of thing, it'd be arguable that there's no actual injury, shall we say.
Yeah.
I still think it smells. Honestly, I think it stinks to high heaven, but I don't think there was enough to have them disqualified as her attorneys.
Right. No worries, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. He says to tell you thanks for joining the live and so
no
on.
Worries.
So he's like my super mod at the moment, and usually backstage so that he gets things like live when I'm asking him to go find stuff for me. So it's just announcing that he's not backstage anymore. Okay, so where are we? Where are we in the notes? I think we pretty much covered everything. I'm really annoyed. So from today, I think the thing I'm most annoyed about is that they're trying to say this is tech stream data when it's got trigger events and friggin' 5-second window before and after a trigger event, and that's not tech stream data. That's what annoyed me the most about today. Like, they're lying about the source of the data.
Yeah, okay.
What's your biggest beef from what we discussed so far about today?
Probably the independent scientist and his attempt at using grease to prove whether or not someone actually could get hit in that way. I'm actually really looking forward to this now, because I think there's going to be a good deal of swearing. It all just seems like it's very indicative of the entire way that this case has been run by the prosecution. They're more than willing to stretch the truth, shall we say, when it suits them and they can't be proven otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're doing forensic science, have you ever hired like a forensic scientist for a case?
I haven't actually had to. I've had a forensic accountant. I haven't had to do any like accident reconstruction or anything like that, because that's not really the area that I'm in.
Right. So even with a forensic accountant, they can't just create their own experiments to show you how it should be, can they?
No, usually no. There has to be established methodologies. There has to be, there's proper ways to go about accident reconstruction. There's proper ways to go about recreating forensic accounts. You don't just pull stuff out of your butt. Is basically what it boils down to. And this guy clearly doesn't have the qualifications to be establishing any new methodologies either.
Right. It's freaking hard to wrap your head around how Bev's letting it all in. But with all the other evidence that she's allowed in, with no metadata and no proof of, like Whiffen and Hyde didn't even verify the data came from those sources that it was claimed they came from. And she's just letting it all in, how West and Crooked. There's there's screenshots of people's text messages that have got no metadata attached to them. So you can't verify that these are actually screenshots and weren't, edited in some way.
Yep.
All of this kind of ties together with allowing this guy to just do his own freaking experiment. Like, let's pretend I'm John. It was crazy. It was crazy, but I'm sure you'll pick out a lot more. Having the lawyer experience behind you, I'm sure you'll pick out a lot more when you go over it. So it's going to be fun to watch your coverage of it. Where are you up to, Hayden?
So I did manage to get back to live. So today I'll be starting today, basically. So
Oh, you're all caught up then. So you just haven't
Yeah.
watched today's.
Yeah, no, I just haven't watched today. I mean, there were a couple of days last week where I basically skipped ahead, but my understanding is I didn't miss too much in terms of it. Maybe at some point, because we've got a public holiday coming up, Monday week, so I might go back and rewatch those streams. But I wanted to get to the interesting stuff, shall we say, and I've just kept going that way. So
yeah, I'm stuck like way back at bloody Jennifer McCabe with my mashups. So you will be making some appearances eventually when I get to more of the stuff. I'm halfway through McCabe's testimony on the mashups. I think the next bit, I forget what the next bit is. What was the last bit that I covered? Oh, where she said nefarious. She was like, she said it exactly the same way that Hank said it.
Yep.
But at the same time, they're both from Boston. They both got the accent. So I don't know if it's suspicious that she said it the same way that Hank said it or not. But
I mean, look, it wouldn't surprise me at this point that they're having discussions. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the fact that Hank even had that conversation with the witness on the stand, that should never have taken place. And
hang on, which conversation are you talking about that he had with the witness?
The one on the 7th of May, where mysteriously the day after he gets a brand new report with alterations made to it.
Yeah, right.
That conversation should never have happened. And I'm surprised that the defense hasn't made more of an issue of it, frankly.
It's the conversation with Ian Whiffen about the time stamps. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm following.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm not up to that yet, but it is next. I actually think I skipped Whiffen and went straight to Jen McCabe, but I probably should. The reason I actually skipped Whiffen is because after going through all of the Law Tube's reactions to Whiffen, I didn't actually get any good reactions. I was all set to go in on, their reactions to it, but I think it was actually over most people's heads. I don't find law tubers to be all that switched on with the data side of things, which has been an absolute godsend being able to talk to you about some of the data stuff because you get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found a lot of blank expressions with Whiffen's testimony, so I kind of skipped over it.
Well, I mean, I can understand it. A lot of what he talked about was technical, and a lot of it probably went a good deal over the jury's head as well. But I mean, I'm still surprised that people didn't have more of a reaction over what I would consider inappropriate conduct. But I mean, the fact that Bev sort of just ignored it as well is really par for the course.
Right.
But
I don't know that the
it
defense
wouldn't fly you,
so
that's
much
all.
ignored it. This is something we were talking about just before we went live. Kevin and I were discussing it. I feel like the defense is raising things at sidebar, but we don't get to hear those sidebars, so we don't know what they're raising.
Yeah.
But I do feel like they're putting as much as they can on record and just letting Bev go. Like, keep making these reversible errors. We're fine with it so long as we get it on record.
Well, that's just it. And that's why, because a little while ago, someone asked me, why didn't they make an immediate appeal as soon as it looked like she was asleep on the stand? And I said, because to be perfectly honest, the defense is acting the exact same way that I would act in that situation. I wouldn't alert her to the fact. I would let her continue to basically be her and compile the thickest folder you've ever seen for an appeal and claim of judicial misconduct.
Exactly.
Like, you don't want to tip her off. You want her to continue to act how she's going to act.
So
Um,
with the list that I'm keeping, I'm trying to get Chat GPT. I have a paid account, so I'm not just getting crap. But I'm
yeah.
trying to get Chat GPT to like order it for me in weight appeals. So the things that weigh more in appeals at the top of the list.
Yep.
So that we know, these are the main issues that they could probably win on. And then if you've got one or two, the SJC could go, but it's judge's discretion. We'll let her get away with that, or there was no prejudice, or whatever. But now, when you
Yep.
when you're at 4 and 5 and 6 main issues, even half a dozen main issues, we're talking. Like I said, I'm up to number 48 in all of the issues, and the first 20 are sort of all main issues, primary sort of reversible error type deals. So, there's a point where cumulative doctrine kicks in and they can't ignore it anymore. They can't just go, one, two, oh, we'll let that go, buckle my shoe, that's fine. we're talking about
Yep.
30 issue or 20 issues that are going to be front and center. Now you're talking about cumulative doctrine. Do we have that in Australia?
To a lesser extent, yes. I mean, to be honest, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. It's not strictly something that I've had to pay attention to,
Yeah.
thankfully. But yeah, basically, when you take a bunch of small things, you turn them into a bigger thing, shall we say, for lack of a better explanation of it.
Yeah.
And no, I would fully expect I would expect that at least someone on that defense team, not necessarily someone sitting at that bar table, but someone is keeping an accurate record of every time she's made any sort of an issue. And I'm not just talking like bad, like in terms of objections, overrules, and that sort of thing. I would be expecting someone to be sitting there and analyzing every aspect of her demeanor, every aspect of how she's pretty much every action she takes, when she's taking particular breaks, when she's, and I'd be logging it all, honestly, because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but I went through her reviews on the roving room, and it's not like the Karen Reid case is an isolated case, which is
No,
really disturbing.
exactly.
Um, by the time you get down to it, and you take out the obviously a bunch of Karen Reid supporters have put in a couple of hundred reviews, but when you go down to the ones that are verified as being from other attorneys that have practiced in front of her, all of whom have been defense attorneys, from what I can gather, it really paints a picture of what she's like in that courtroom. And it's terrifying to think that she's probably railroaded other people into life sentences.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even watching different trials that she's presided over, she seems to be a completely different judge in different trials. Like, she presided over that Chesner case, so he was a cop as well. She was a completely different judge to what she is in this case. She had completely different well, the way she was running the courtroom, who the jury could see in the Chesner family. She wouldn't allow the Chesner family to cry or show emotion in front of the jury. Where in this trial, she's got them
Mm-hmm.
perched directly opposite the jury. So it's all
Yeah.
completely different stuff. But the person who I think might be sitting in the background logging all of this was probably Marty Weinberg, and he has a whole team of people that work in his office. I imagine it's Marty Weinberg
Right.
and Alessi. Between Marty Weinberg and Alessi, they're like the appeals specialists in the
Yeah.
group of lawyers. So imagine it's Marty Weinberg, because we don't
Okay.
see a lot of him. The only time we see him pop up is at the SJC, and then again at the habeas court. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, that's probably who's doing this. But I did notice that most of the sidebars, unless he's driving them mostly, like everyone's there to listen in, but it feels like I get this vibe that Alessi's driving all of the appealable issues, like he's in the driver's seat when it's appealable,
Well, that would make a
which
lot of
is what's
sense.
giving me the hints, incidentally, as to what to research as an appealable ruling from the judge. If Alessi's in it, I'm like in there researching it. Okay, Alessi brought that one up. What's a go here? What am I missing? So I didn't actually think he was going to be crossing anyone. I thought he was just going to be there strictly for the appeals side of things, or only crossing where there's an appealable issue. But dude is kicking ass. The tech
Dude is
on the
amazing.
tech
Honestly,
side,
I
he's go on.
do we have confirmation that he's actually in his 60s?
We had confirmation he's close to 67.
Damn.
I know. He's looking good. He's looking good. I generally don't like to comment on, people's looks and stuff, just because I am so much older than everybody, and commenting would just be inappropriate because most of the other people involved are like my kids' ages. And it would just be but I feel
I wouldn't be worried
comfortable
about that. I was more thinking that, like, I mean, at 67, for such a legal mind, he's incredibly sharp. Like, I know lawyers that are that same age that are already in decline. So,
right
like, for him to be up
mentally.
there arguing so meticulously as well.
But he gets so many different facets of the detail in the complex situations. He's into the detail. Well, he hasn't crossed much on the car data yet, but you wait till he does. Like he gets the maths, he gets kinematics, he gets the whole thing. He gets
Mhm.
the physics, he gets the medical stuff. Like he's so switched on with pretty much everything.
Mm.
Michelle's confirming, yes, we have confirmed 67. Thank you, Jason, for the super chat. Bev in Mass is the new Schroeder here in Wisconsin.
Ooh. I don't know. After the Zachariah Anderson trial, that's a hard bar to get through, I suppose. I mean, Schroeder, I don't believe was. I'm just gonna say it. I don't believe Schroeder was corrupt. Let's put it that way.
Have you got the card? Yes, I don't think Schroeder was corrupt. I think, yes. Thank you. Sorry, son's going to the shop for me. Also,
No, fair enough. I'd be talking too, except I'm going over a rough patch of road.
it's all right. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I've not really seen any judges that I would put into this level of bias and corrupt. I've seen some that have, done one or two things throughout a trial that you could put a question mark over, like
Mhm.
Judge Gull, for example, like in the Richard Allen Delphi case.
Yep.
I didn't agree with some of the things that she was doing, like cutting off the public to the trial was probably one of them. She could have done that a different way and still protected the children's virtue, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
But the fact that the children were found naked and all that sort of thing, I kind of get why she was doing that. Like for the families, like we are very strict on that sort of stuff here in Australia.
Yeah.
So I sort of like lowered the bar a little bit for that. But there were some other things that she did that I thought were terrible moves. And there was even one terrible move that she made that the higher court smacked her down and said, no, you need to rethink this. She actually fired his lawyers publicly. You
Oh.
guys are incompetent. You're out. And then the appeals court said, no, you need to redo that. He needs to have his lawyers. But they didn't rule totally against her. They basically said he's now forfeiting his right to say that his counsel was inadequate, but we'll
Yeah.
give him his counsel back. So that was basically where they landed with that. But
Right.
anyway, I feel like even Judge Gull falls like multiple measures below what Bev's pulled so far.
I mean, look, I've dealt with some judges in my time so far. I will say that there's been some times when either judges or even VCAP members, which I'll explain later if need be, but there's a basically I have yet to see anyone that has reached the same level as what I've seen from Bev, and it's been so disgusting that on a professional level for me, it is concerning.
Yeah.
Um, I would want any number of cases that she may have presided over to be reviewed, basically. And I think it was Andrea Burkhart that said it. I haven't personally double checked it, but I think Bev's got like a 50% overturn rate anyway. Like
Right.
that's insane.
It is, isn't it?
I mean, even a bad judge, you might be looking at between 15 and 30% overturn rate, but 50, like.
I'm not sure that I've even seen any bad judges in Australia, and that's only because we don't televise our trials.
Yes, which is of itself is an issue. As far as I'm concerned, any courtroom that I can physically go and sit down in as a member of the public, which is like 98% of trials, the only ones where there are specific exclusions are family court hearings where there's kids involved.
Yeah.
And if it's if it's matters of national security, or if there's an application by one of the parties for their privacy or whatever else, I can fully understand them closing a courtroom occasionally. But if it's a case where I can,
sex abuse, I think the child sexual abuse is also another one that I'll give them the okay with.
But pretty much any court where I am able to physically walk in, sit down, take notes on, that should be streamed, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I find it very frustrating that there are standing court orders for pretty much every court in Australia, that even ones where the court do stream it, there's not to be any reproduction, there's not to be any commentary on it, there's not to be any you can't even really talk about it. And that's why, for example, I was telling you the mushroom case, Aaron Pattinson, I haven't covered that yet, and I won't until that's decided. Probably not even until the verdict, not even when the verdict's rendered. I'll probably wait until after sentencing if she's found guilty, because otherwise all I can really do is parrot out what the mainstream media is saying, because that's already been vetted, basically. Like,
yeah, here in audience lies the reason why we don't cover Australian cases.
Pretty much, because not only do we have very strict rules as to what the court says we can and can't do, but specifically in terms of our journalism laws, because we don't have the First Amendment, for example, we can only say very specific things. There are actual guidelines as to what you are allowed to say about an ongoing case that's currently before the court. And it's literally, this is what they are accused of. This is... these are minor details about the case. You can't say anything that may infer guilt. Honestly, sometimes I don't even know how the news gets away with saying what they do.
Right.
But but like the example that I gave you was that there was a case in New South Wales that was going to be live streamed. Myself and another YouTuber decided that given that it was going to be streamed, we applied to the court for permission to be able to restream it.
Right.
Not only did we get a very emphatic no back, because you can apply to the court individually for permission, basically. But not only did we get an emphatic order back saying no, the court actually issued a general broad rule saying that there was to be no reproduction, no commentary on this case whatsoever by anybody. The other guy still went ahead and did so, and he wound up in front of the judge for contempt. They actually issued a subpoena, and if he had not shown up, there was going to be a bench warrant for him to attend the court to explain why he still went ahead and commented on the case.
Yep. And also we've got even people in mainstream media. There's a fellow named Darren Hinch. He's actually done about 4 stints in jail now for contempt of court because he's gone ahead against court orders and reported on stuff. So, yeah, so it's not even the mainstream media is allowed to and we're restricted. It's not even that. Even the mainstream media is getting chucked in jail. In fact, they're the first ones that would go straight to jail, do not pass go.
Yep.
The rest of us might actually get the bench, slap on the hand and sent on our way, but the media actually gets a lot worse, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why they've got professional indemnity insurance, I suppose. But like I said, that's why I haven't talked about the mushroom case at all yet, because all that I'd be able to say is very basic information. And if I'm not allowed to provide any color commentary, shall we say, on it, then what's the point? I'm doing a disservice to my viewers. So I'm just going to wait.
I hear that there is, just to change a subject, it's kind of on the same topic line, but I did hear there's actually some news come out about William Tyrrell.
Really?
Yeah, so there's this duo that work for 9 News. She's a podcast director, and he's a Nine News reporter.
Yeah.
They have been investigating everything the police didn't. So they had the coroner inquest.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, isn't it?
Coronial inquest. Yep.
They had the coronial inquest. There was one person who a lot of people had actually pointed fingers at because he was in the area. He's actually serving time for child sexual abuse. I don't know what the cases are, but it's multiple cases.
Yep.
He was living in that area, like just down the road from where William Tyrrell went missing, and he had said to people, "Oh yeah, I did it," plus
Oh,
a bunch of
Jesus.
other stuff.
Yeah.
And then at the coronial inquest, the judge wouldn't let anybody question him. The judge put him on Zoom and let him question everybody who was accusing him of having said stuff, but nobody was allowed to question him, like about his whereabouts and whether he was living in the area at the time or anything about him. So now they have that they're digging into this guy's history, and it looks like he could be like a main suspect in two other murders.
Oh, Jesus.
So there's a young girl who was riding a bike home, I think in 1968.
Mhm.
She was riding a push bike home from work. She disappeared, and then they found a body a little while later. And they found, and then there was another one, another murder. I don't know if I'm mixing them up at the moment. But one of them, they found the girl's watch in his car. And or someone said they'd seen his watch in the car, and the cops never even asked him anything about it. His alibis were all screwed up. People he said he was alibied with, the cops never followed it up and corroborated that he actually did have these alibis. Like, it's just going deeper and deeper. I'm up to like podcast number 14 or 15 now. They're just driving around that part of New South Wales, getting in contact with everybody that the police didn't interview.
Yeah.
And then the jockstrap who lost his job because he was doing such a bad job at everything, he stands up there. I can't even think of his name off the top of my head, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he stands up there in the coronial court and says, "Yeah, we didn't have any evidence against the parents. We were just pointing fingers at them, but we didn't have any evidence against the parents." So a lot of people have been, especially a lot of media, have been pointing fingers directly at the foster parents and the real parents. Everyone's been under the spotlight. Even the dude that fixed the washing machine the day before
Yeah.
has been dragged through the ringer. Pardon the pun. Everyone's been put through, but there's never been any evidence against any of them.
Yeah.
Where there is evidence is this dude who's a suspect in two other murders. So a jury found him not guilty of the first murder.
Right.
I think is a travesty of justice, because we do have a similar law here where you can't be tried for the same offence
Yeah. Double jeopardy. Yep.
in some states. I don't know that double jeopardy actually applies across the board. I'm sure some states have laxed it.
There's been inroads by certain states to try and loosen it, but most states across Australia and definitely at a federal level, double jeopardy still applies. There's been a couple of attempts at introducing legislation to remove it in certain circumstances, but I don't know if any of those have gone through as of yet.
Yeah. So I don't think he can be retried anyway, but there's
Yeah.
this other outstanding murder which he's obviously a suspect in, or else these two people wouldn't be looking into it. So, but the whole reason that, yes, Gary Jubilant, thank you, Miss K, that's the dude. Sidebar: how far does Hayden have to drive to work?
2 hours each way every day.
You must be almost there then.
Just about, yeah. I'm probably 10 minutes out.
Yeah. Detective Gary Jubilant. My mum was telling me about the old guy connected to two murders. They said he would stop and say hello to all the kids. Yeah, meh. Yeah, he's a bit of a creeper. And he's currently in jail for child sex abuse against under 10-year-old.
Oh, Jesus.
And I think under 14-year-old, I think, are the two, just off the top of my head. I fell asleep listening to it, so don't quote me on those, but I think that's what it was. But yeah, so yeah, there's certainly more going on in the background that the cops aren't investigating. So we could solve the missing William Tyrrell case, maybe.
I mean, it'd be nice to see a resolution to that because that story, honestly, is just heartbreaking. But
Hmm.
it does concern me that we're getting to a point where it is coming down to podcasters and independent investigators to actually solve cold case murders. Like
Right.
for
That's
all
exactly
the
what we said.
for all the authoritarianism that we're getting put under, you'd think that at some point the cops would just actually do their jobs. Like I'm less concerned about whether or not someone down the street is smoking weed on the sidewalk. I mean, sure, maybe like I'm not saying anyone should DUI or anything like that, but I'm less concerned about that than I am, say, oh, I don't know, machete attacks in the middle of a shopping center. But I would still fully expect them to be actually investigating actual murders, actual crimes.
Yeah,
So,
that's it. I'm with you. New South Wales actually has literally hundreds of cold cases, unsolved cold cases, hundreds. Very few of them cover, kids. The list of missing kids, cold cases involving kids is dwindling,
mm,
but we still got hundreds and hundreds of cold cases. There's just up here around Byron Bay near where I live. There's a couple of people who went missing. One of them's a backpacker from, I think it's Germany.
oh
Um,
no, someone pull a oh god, what's his now? Are they copycatting what's his face, the backpack killer?
I don't know what's going on, but it's
Okay.
just fucking weird that the cops won't investigate it. It's just weird.
Oh, so they won't even look into it.
Well, they're saying they're saying he suicided. That's what they're saying.
Right.
But he there's just weird shit that they didn't investigate. So his parents found one of his teeth like a year later in a completely different area. That could be
What?
that could be like scavengers, but it just shows you like that they didn't scour the area looking to see. They didn't do much investigating.
Yeah.
The parents found his belongings in another area again, and then his van had been. So he was like he was doing the bush party, like touring around, and he's living in his camper doing the bush party tour,
Yep.
party to party kind of weekend kind of thing. And so he was living out of his van. His van had been completely ransacked, like completely torn apart.
Mm,
So
okay.
yeah, not an Ivan Milat. It's not an Ivan Milat copycat. It's just that the cops aren't doing their job. It's just an example of the cops not doing their job.
Yeah.
Basically, the family are really upset because they just didn't investigate anything. They just went, "Oh look, he's dead, and it's a pile of bones. We're a little bit late to do any testing. He must have committed suicide." If he's doing those party routes, probably suicide. It's like they're not even
They're not even
bothering.
going to try. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And yet they're
so
out there bitching and moaning about not being paid enough. What a joke.
right. But yeah, there's like I say, there's hundreds of unsolved cases, but that was just another one that caught my attention. I'm sure that there's people out there covering a lot of different cases that the cops haven't solved yet. But as you pointed out when we just to do the full 360 there.
Yep.
As you pointed out, what can we report on? And as soon as you make the cops look bad, they're knocking on your door wanting to freaking bust you for weed or something. So it's not really much we can do about it, like as far as covering any of the stories, right?
Yeah, and I mean, in the small instances, I mean, there's been examples in the past where um, podcasters have gotten involved and found evidence and whatever else, and then the cops turn at them looking at like, oh, well, you found this, you must have been involved. So, I mean, it's you got to be careful as well. It's not just that the cops don't like to be made to be look bad. It's that they've done some pretty shoddy shit in the past themselves. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you're aware of what happened with Victoria Police a couple of decades ago. God, I still can't
Yep.
believe it was. I can't believe I have to say decades. I feel so old when I say that. For anyone that doesn't know, Victoria Police at one point was so corrupt that they just had to gut the entire sector, and I'm still not even 100% sure that it's been completely clean now.
Yeah.
So
They say it has, but me, did they really? It's the same with Massachusetts, but they really need to do something very similar in Massachusetts, and that just clean out the whole freaking thing and start from scratch, or
Yep.
bring in cops from different areas, different states. Frank Abbott is the guy's name, not guilty of 3 bodies near his property. Thank you, Miss K. That's the William Tyrrell case.
Yeah.
Thank you for the gifted memberships, Michelle, and well done to everyone who picked up a gifted membership. You are now a bony ass, which is Australian for bonus, in case you don't know. I just invented a membership level that gives me access to giving away free memberships. They were like, yeah, we won't let you give away free memberships unless you have this higher paying membership level. So I invented it and called it a bonus level, the bony ass level.
Oh, so you're allowed to give away free memberships? They took that away from me.
Yeah, I don't have it now. I think
Okay.
I think they only give it to you for so much. So if this is what I'm thinking. I haven't actually tested this theory yet, but if I created a $10 level of memberships, they
Mhm.
will probably give me another bunch to give away. But it's limited how much you can give away.
See, because that's not how they built it to us originally when they brought it in. Originally, it was supposed to be if you created a level that was low enough, so whether it was $1 or 99 cents, or in our case $1.99, because of the conversion rate, they said they were going to give us 10 free to give away, just as like
Every month.
incentive. Exactly.
Yeah. Now
So
so I actually had to do the opposite. I had 99-cent membership, then I had to create this more expensive membership to get that benefit.
yeah.
And now I've run out. So,
Huh. There you go.
but anyway, thank you so much for that, Michelle. Yeah, they're going back on their promises. Assholes. Changing shit around on us.
On the backside.
All right, so Welcher was a member of the Blue Man Group. What's the Blue Man Group? Is that meant to be significant to me?
The Blue Man Group are a troop of guys that are painted completely with blue body paint, and they do music and stuff. I think they're in Vegas at the moment. I think they're one of the
Right,
headliners in Vegas. But basically, it's because he was playing around with the blueberries. That's
right.
funny.
That's funny. That's from Alexa's stream. she's a funny girl. I like her sense of humor. In fact, between you and Alexis, you both inspired me to write a new music track for Bev. So you were talking about Bev failing upwards,
Yeah.
and I had it in my mind. I got to write a track about that. And then Alexis sent me a gify of Bev, Claw is the law. So I wrote a new music track. Claw is the law. Claw, claw, claw. So it's pretty much from that old 60s song, Bird is the Word.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
I basically kind of did something similar to that. But anyway, you guys actually inspired me to do that music track. So, but yeah, on the note of Bev failing upwards, we actually talked about this the other night. Do you think that there is anything improper about the Bar Association awarding Bev Person of the Year?
I'm sorry, they did what now?
They awarded Bev Person of the Year.
Oh my god. Well, see, and here's the problem, because this is something that I didn't actually understand, that it varies from state to state. I only learnt this recently when I was dealing with other lawyers in the US. Because the Bar Association here in Australia, or at least here in Victoria anyway, is very different. It's very much a regulatory body. It's very much they come down on you hard, and it is mandatory to be involved. I gather that in certain states in America, it's a voluntary thing, that they don't really have a lot of pull with lawyers if you don't want them to, and all that sort of stuff. But to go out of their way to give Bev Person of the Year, I mean, have they met Bev? Like,
Clearly they know her. So what I understand of Beverly is she is involved in extrajudicial roles.
activities, yeah.
One of them involves creating the laws for the state. That is one of her roles. She was just involved in the new Rule 14 makeover.
Oh my god. With all the decisions that she's made in relation to Rule 14 in this case, she's just been the one to rework it.
She's
Oh,
the one
damn.
that just reworked it, right? Well, it's a board of people, but she was involved with that board.
Yeah.
So that's why I think she gets honoured by the Bar Association. I don't think it's improper. What I think is that it's a bad look because of what she's already doing in this case, and then getting Person of the Year. I feel like it's a bad look.
You'd
But I don't
think
feel
they
like,
take the negative publicity into account. Definitely.
right. I feel like they're more like circling the wagons to try and protect her from the bad publicity.
I don't think giving her an award and a pat on the head saying good job is going to deal with that, though, if I'm perfectly honest.
I don't either. Like, she's screwed. 90% of the world, we've got somewhere close to 2 million viewers watching this trial unfold.
Mm-hmm.
1.7, I think we're up to 1.8. I think we're up to million viewers for this trial. And 90% of the polls are saying this is shit.
Yep.
The judge is shit. The prosecution, even at making to trial, was shit. So around 90 to 95% are saying, yeah, this whole thing is shit. So I don't think giving her Person of the Year award is going to fix that.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
The damage is done. So I told you about, I just realized the conversation we had was about Aperture sponsoring the dinner awards.
Yep.
That was the week before. So
Oh, no
the
shit.
week after, like last week, she was awarded Person of the Year by the same bar association. So it kind of like makes
Norfolk County
it makes
Bar.
it all look shady as shit, right?
Yep.
All shady as shit.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about? You must be nearly at work by now.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I'll probably need to wrap it up because my reception when I get to outside my office, for some reason the Starlink generally stops working. So what I will say is thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can do it again soon, and with this shit show of a case, honestly.
Thanks for sharing your brains and experience with us. Much appreciated. We'd love to have you back.
No, anytime. As always, people, stay healthy, wealthy, wise, and I will catch you all later.
All right. Bye, Hayden. Thanks
ya.
again. Okay, boys and girls. Let me just move Hayden off the stage while he does his disconnecting. All right. So I think we covered so much. My brain's a big jello mess now. We've covered everything we can cover, haven't we? I was going to go into a much bigger deep dive on the whole data side of things, but what we might do is we might hang about and let Hayden catch up with today's trial, because he's the only other lawyer that I know that, he knows the law, but he also knows the data side of shit. He gets that side of things probably a little bit more than most of the lawyers do. So I might wait until he catches up with today and just gets through old mate's 150-page freaking slideshow. Wait, isn't he the dude that's at court all the time? Who are you talking about? Tell me who you're talking about, Holly. The dude we just had on? I'm not sure. It was different bar. Aperture. Oh, they were two different ones. There you go. Aperture sponsored the Mass State Bar reception thingy, and Bev got Person of the Year by the Norfolk County. Okay, I didn't realize they were two different bars. So one's state bar and one's local bar, obviously. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, so I think we'll just wait for Hayden to catch up with Welcher's testimony. And then by the time he's done that, we'll be at the end of his testimony, and then Alessi will have started cross. But I'd like to talk with Hayden more about the data side of things, because I got so much more digging into the tech stream and the EDR side of things. But also I'd like to have the lawyer's perspective on, what they can and can't call attention to as the defense. So are you talking about Turtle Boy? And if so, yes. Or are you talking about Tommy CPU? Because he's also at court all the time as well. That's who you might be referring to. He was here in the chat a little while back. So I'm up to the wig part. Okay. That's it, guys. I think we're done. I think we're spent. Yes, Aperture was the platinum sponsor of the annual Mass Bar dinner on the 8th of May, same day as Burgess submitted his second report. Funny thing that. There you go. God, you guys are way behind. Way behind where we're at. But yeah, interesting. So we covered so many topics today. Yeah, Michelle, I think she's actually back in the stream a little bit, where I mentioned Turtle Boy doing the demo with his car, or maybe when Tom actually called in and said hello. Do you think he cobbled together data from different sources to create his spreadsheet? No, I think that the data is actually from the EDR, not the text stream. I think it is actually from the EDR, because otherwise you wouldn't have those trigger events. Like, it wouldn't actually have that T next to in the column for trigger event, and it wouldn't be counting, the 5 seconds either side of the trigger event. That's actually the EDR doing that. But I doubt that it's an exact copy of the data from the car. I feel like they may have doctored some of that data. So, oh, you think follow what Helly's saying now. No, Hayden is Australian, and the dude you're talking about is Welsh. So, different countries. But no. All right, that's it, guys. We're going to sign out. I'm going to play an outro song. Let me pull up an outro song. I actually made 2 songs this week. The first one I played at the intro, Claw is the Law, which I thought was freaking hilarious because, Judge Bev's rulings are always the law. But anyway, I now have, let's get this one up. We'll wait. We'll get past the ad first. Let's get past the ads. Oh, they're going to hit me with more than one ad. God damn it. All right, here we go. Outro song. And yes, the bangs. It's the bangs. All right, boys and girls. Until next vent stream, stay healthy, happy, and wise.
Stop the bangs, stop the bangs. Stop the bangs, stop the bangs. Stop the bangs, can't stop the bangs. You can't stop the bangs, stop the bangs. Stop the bangs, can't stop the bangs. You can't stop the bangs, can't stop the bangs. bangs like Henry Moore. Beverly is the sidebar whore. Come on! Can't stop the bangs. You can't stop the bangs. Can't stop the bangs. Can't stop the bangs. Can't stop the bangs.